opinion, you can't beat practical special effects, and the 80s had some great examples of this. The infamous Norris Monster from The Thing being one of the best of those examples, created by the amazing Rob Bottin. So whilst I sit here and pray that the YouTube gods don't give me a copyright strike for showing those short clips, onto the prep. Now, I already had these spider legs that I'd used for previous makeup looks, so I decided to reuse them. You know, if you watch this channel a lot, I like to reuse things. Same with this eyeball from my Jester look. Now, first things first, if you're recreating any kind of iconic movie character, you need to do some research. So I did this research and got some reference pictures of the Norris Monster. It's surprisingly hard to find good stills from the actual film, ones where you can actually see exactly what he looks like. So I used a variety of different pictures, sculptures that people have recreated, etc., etc. When it came to recreating the eye stalks, I simply made them out of some tin foil to get the basic shape, making sure the eyeballs fitted in. And then I simply covered it with this silk clay, which is really cheap, kind of foamy type of clay, which air dries, and it's really ultra lightweight and quite soft. So you can get it from Hobbycraft or any craft store. I think in America the equivalent is Crayola Model Magic, that kind of thing. So just work that over the whole of the foil armature. And I use these modelling tools just to add a little bit of detail. I use different skin tones to create this colour, but if you've only got white, that's fine, because you can always paint them at a later point. Then taking some cotton wool and latex, I then had to tart up the spider legs a little bit, purely because they were looking a little bit too pretty and clean. So first of all I painted them red, and once they were looking like king crab legs, I then covered them in just little wisps of cotton wool and latex, just to add a little bit of texture and character to them, because obviously the Norris Monster is not going to be all nice and clean and pretty. You want him to look a little bit gnarly, a little bit weathered. He's seen a bit of life, has our Norris. Well, he hasn't, because he was literally like born for 2 seconds and he got torched by Kurt Russell. But, you know, a monster isn't going to be all pristine and clean and, you know. Anyway, so once you've done that and it's all dried, you want to go on to the painting. I use lots of different coloured paints just to create a really kind of, again, gnarly. I know I use that word a lot in my tutorials, but it's the best word to describe the sort of stuff I do. I want a kind of a gnarly, almost rotten flesh look. I mean, I know he wasn't rotten, but, you know, again, he's not going to have a pristine complexion. So just stipple on lots of different colours until you are happy with the shades that you've got. At this point I realised that some of the full armature was still showing through, so I just patched it up with a little bit of latex and cotton wool. Easy. And then just continues with the paint job. So basically, if you want to know the shades I used, obviously you can see what I'm using, but I used a combination of greens, yellows, blues, and then I mixed up this flesh tone that you can see me doing here, and then just went over the whole thing. So the sort of the greeny, bluey, reddy undertones, if you like, created the depth to the look, and then the pinky and more flesh tone shades brought it all together and made those other colours look like they were kind of under the skin. So that's what you're trying to achieve here. When you're creating any kind of skin tone like this, it does take a little while, because you do want to build it up in layers. I mean, if you paint anything too solidly, it's just going to look fake. So it does help to kind of take the time to add these layers of all different colours, because then you get a lot more interest and it looks a lot more realistic, a lot more translucent, even though it's not translucent, and a lot more flesh-like, even if it's monster flesh that you're creating like we are in this case. But of course, you know, if you are in a bit of a rush and you just want to paint a solid colour, you do you can always do that. There are no rules in makeup. I'm just kind of telling you how I do things. So anyway, once everything is all painted, we are done. We stick in the eyeballs into the eye stalks, of course. Just make sure they're in there nicely. And I decided that they were kind of looking a bit out on a limb, if you'll excuse the pun. So I added just a little bit more of that silk clay around to create like a little hood, not hood, eyelid is a better word for it, eyelid. Yeah, I added a little eyelid around them, and then I was a lot happier with how they were looking. So, but again, you do you. If you want to look like they're more kind of out on a limb, then you can happily leave them as they are. Incidentally, my modelling tools, I have got some proper modelling tools, but I also use nail tools, I use baking tools. Basically, there's all sorts of things you can use as modelling tools, so don't feel like you have to have proper professional modelling tools. It's really not necessary. On this channel, we're all about using what you have and keeping it as cheap as possible. You don't need to go out and buy loads of really expensive materials and tools. It's just not necessary. I mean, again, if you want to, you can do. You do you, but yeah, it's just not necessary. So once all the prep's done, it's on to application. I filmed this a year ago, so God knows why I had that scratch, I don't remember. But first of all, you want to sort out a wig if you don't already have short hair like Norris. So I just used this old blonde wig that I had. I don't even remember what I got it for, but I sprayed it red because I didn't want it to be blonde. And then I moved on to the application. So I blocked out my brows in preparation with a glue stick and then set about gluing on the appendages. Now, the Prose Aid, which is what I'm using, is a contact adhesive, so you want it on both your skin and on the end of the limb. So the best way to do this is to paint it onto the limb and then kind of stamp it on your face, because then you can see exactly where it's going to go and you've got exactly the right amount of glue. Let the glue go clear and tacky and then stick on the limb, and then you just want to blend with some latex and cotton wool. Now, can I just say, I absolutely hate doing voiceovers. For some reason, whenever I do a voiceover, I mean, normally in real life, I can talk the hind legs off a donkey. But for some reason, when I'm doing voiceovers, I lose the power of speech and I start saying the most ridiculous things and I end up having to record it over and over again. So if I ever sound fed up in my voiceovers, it's probably because I've recorded it about 10 times before the actual bit that you hear. So anyway, back onto the tutorial. So you saw me there just drying the latex and cotton wool with a hairdryer, because that just speeds it up because it can take a little time to dry. And then you just want to start blending in with some colour. So just start off with a red tone like you did with the legs and just go over that then with some flesh tone. I just realised that I didn't actually tell you how I made the legs. I just told you that I already had some that I'd already made, which isn't very helpful, is it? This is supposed to be a tutorial after all. So while you just watch me painting on the different stippled colours onto my face in order to match the legs, I will roughly tell you how I made the legs. So it's basically just paper and polystyrene balls. So the kind of knee joints, if you like, are polystyrene balls, which you can pick up really cheaply. I got them in two sizes, large and small, as you can see, for the bigger knee joint and the smaller knee joint of the spider legs. And then the actual body of the legs, if you like, is just rolled paper. So I just kind of rolled it into a rough cone, sellotaped it, and then snipped off the end, hot glued the polystyrene ball in as a joint, and then did the same with the next part of the leg, except I then stuck in the fatter end of the cone, if that makes sense. This is probably not making a lot of sense. If anybody wants me to do a separate spider legs tutorial, I will do a quick one maybe on my Instagram or something, so just comment below if you want a separate spider legs tutorial and I will endeavour to sort that out for you, but hopefully you can follow what I'm saying. And then I just created some little spikes on the end with some polymorph plastic. So that's those little plastic balls that you put in hot water and it melts down and then you can mould it. It's almost like a plastic clay. And I just created little tiny like hooks to go on the end of the spider legs just to finish it off. And again, hot glued those in. So anyway, back to the main tutorial. You can see here that I'm kind of painting on different wrinkles and almost facial expressions onto it to match the Norris Monster. I'm just using a brownie toned grease paint for this and then just blending it. You will see me doing this stupid face a lot throughout the tutorial because I was kind of matching the face that the monster pulls, just to see that I'm getting all the lines and wrinkles and crevices correct. So yeah, apologies in advance for all the stupid faces that you see me pulling in this tutorial. But yeah, so just keep going with the wrinkles until you are happy that you've got them all in the right places and that they're blended out nicely with a fluffy brush. You kind of want this to look natural but almost a little bit theatrical. That's the look that I went for anyway. It wasn't kind of as natural as it looked in the film because obviously this is more of a costume makeup recreation of the look. Well, it's not really a look, is it? It was a monster, but you know what I'm saying. But yes, you want to kind of go a little bit theatrical with your shading and a bit over the top. You don't have to be too natural with it. So just think kind of contour but very over the top. And then obviously where there's contour there is highlight, so just taking a very light flesh toned, which I just mixed up from that same grease palette. I'm just putting it on all the high points here just to create those highlights where you have got those wrinkles. Incidentally, my little flash palette that you see there is a dupe of the expensive flash palette that a lot of the YouTubers use. So I think mine was about £12 as opposed to about 25 quid, I think the other one is, and it's really good. It works really well. So again, you do not have to spend a fortune to recreate these looks, and that's something that I do like to drive home on my channel. So sticking on the eye stalks in exactly the same way as we stuck on the monster legs, and then for the monster legs on the head I just stuck them on a headband and then put the headband on around the wig, and then yeah, basically we are done. So I hope you liked this tutorial. Clearly I have turned the footage upside down to look like the monster. Don't worry, you don't have to do a headstand or a handstand if you're going to rock this look for Halloween. One thing I do suggest is that you just wear all black, that way the makeup will shine and will be the focal point. And I can pretty much guarantee you that nobody else will be rocking this costume at the Halloween party, so you will definitely stand out. Oh, and incidentally, you can add some pointy teeth like I've done here. So thank you for watching, and if you don't subscribe I will send Norris round to crawl over in your sleep. Bye!